Hello guys, welcome back to another video. My name is David and I'm here with my green tea in my grad dorm. Took a shower, did some meditation, and then wrote some notes, some ideas again. And today, for this video, I was thinking of doing it on the idea of if you're feeling stuck and you're creative, you're an artist, you make music, you make illustrations, you're a designer, you're a creator, or whatever content you make online or could be in the real world. If you feel stuck and you're not sure, maybe you just started, you're working on your startup or your new business, your new ideas, or you have ideas for projects. Maybe you wanted to make a podcast or a YouTube channel, but you don't know if what you're doing is good or if you deserve to be doing it, if you have what it takes. We talked about imposter syndrome in some other videos. If you're in that situation where you're kind of blocked, my advice would be to just create. Just do it and just go for it, and then you will figure it out as you do it. Obviously, this is a very oversimplified view. I'll go into detail as to what I mean about that. But the way I see it is that everyone is a creative. Let's just start with that. The idea that creativity only comes from certain people, I think, is a very flawed view. In reality, everyone is a creative in their own shape, own form. You can be creative if you do science. That is a form of creation. Everything is a theory in this world. Everything has been written by people. If you're talking about papers, if you're talking about, engineers writing thesis or writing, experiments, that is a form of human creation. The same way if you're a musician and you record yourself playing on the guitar or singing, that is a form of human creation. And if you really look at, even if you, let's say, own a pizza shop and you make pizza, you are a creator. You make pizza and you sell it to people. You own a restaurant, you own a coffee shop. You created something out of nothing. Entrepreneurs are the best examples of creative. They bring value, they bring wealth, they create jobs to people who need it and who would want to work for it and believe in this value. Maybe it's because they get some form of income from it. And so you're creating jobs, you're creating wealth, you're creating value to society. So this whole notion of, I need to be talented to be creative is very flawed. I think you might be thinking, if you think like that, you might be thinking, traditionally back in the days, how art was really gate kept and, only the elite could be performing creative endeavors, and for the most of people had to work, very laborious jobs and very hard jobs. But today we have the luxury of being in a world of abundance for the most part. I'm talking in a general sense, obviously, but we have the internet. We're connected, so we have abundance of information, abundance of resources. If you're talking about education and just having the access to the job market. If you're a freelancer, you can work. If you're from India, you can work for a firm in Mexico. If you're from the US, you can work for a firm in Japan. We have all of this accessible to us now, thanks to the internet, and so we can all be creative again. And so this is the first notion I want to start with: is that everyone is a creative. So let's start with that as a foundation. Now, how do we actually go about making a living or doing things, as a way of life? Or, how do you make money? How do you make a living doing the things you enjoy doing and being creative and following your curiosities, your genuine interests, and, the things you like in doing? And that starts by just picking one thing. And I think that's the key takeaway of this video that I want to really hone down on, is that it's not just about doing, it's about thinking and deciding what to do in the first place. Let me take a step back from there. Because of the fact that we're in this age of abundance and we have unlimited choices. You can decide to do anything you really want to. The decision you make to make a living is probably the most important thing you can do right now. If you follow the advice of, past generations, it could be your parents, it could be your grandparents, your friends, your neighbors who are maybe older. I'm 25, so if you're the same age as me, probably your parents are telling you to go into academia, go to university, get a degree, get a good job. That model, and I won't go into detail, it's not the video for that, but this is a model that's very outdated, that comes from the Industrial Revolution, and that worked at that time. Right now, things are very different. You wanna really think about what you enjoy doing, first of all, and what you're really good at. That's the really important thing you want to think about, is what's your unfair advantage. And you might think you have nothing, but I would argue that you have something. Everybody has an unfair advantage. It could be genetic. It could be because of your location, because of who you know, what you've consumed as a kid, what you were naturally drawn to. You've spent more hours doing that thing and that activity, and you're just better than most people around you, and you get compliments for it, or people look at what you're doing and are impressed, or you have an ability to just an ease with things. And when you get in that thing, whatever it is, you get in the flow state. And I'll go into detail about what it means to be in the flow state. But that one thing is your unfair advantage that you really want to hone down on, and you want to turn into, your future profession, your life's mission. And that thing can change. We're not made to be specialists, we're generalists. So you can have many different things in your life. You can grow, and then as you grow and you get older and you get experiences, you might get bored about that thing and you want to try something else. That's normal. That's the same way artists operate. If you look at music artists, sometimes they change styles. They'll stick into one style, it becomes a hit, and then after a while they decide to go into something else. And but if you notice, the listeners, the fans of that artist, will follow along whatever the artist creates, because the artist is the artist. They're the sole creator, and it's genuine, it's authentic. People resonate with that. And we're going more and more towards an age where people have less trust in big corporations and big companies because of bureaucracy, obviously, and there's other issues, but just because we don't really trust large organizations, because who is a large organization? It's just a group of people, and sometimes it's in the thousands or 10,000s or 100,000s, and you don't really know who you're dealing with, It's much more human and much more genuine when you're having a one-on-one conversation with someone. You're truly talking with them and having a conversation with them, and you're making a deal, or you're having business, or you're making an offer together, one-on-one, person to person. That is the most human way of interacting. That's how we've interacted back in the days when we were, early humans. We didn't really operate in large groups. We mostly operate in either one-on-one or in small tribes. That is just how we felt, or that's how we, evolved from. So that's a tangent, but to come back, you really want to think about the thing you are good at, and that you have an advantage over others. That because at the end of the day, you need leverage. You need something that can make you stand out. And so for me, for example, it was anything that had to do with visual creation. So sketching. I used to be a really avid sketcher and drawer. I grew up with a pencil in my hand, and I would sketch in class all throughout high school, university, and now I'm studying architecture at MIT. And so I was able to naturally just take that. And it wasn't a linear path. Like, I thought I would be a doctor at some point. I went into physiology, studied that for a year. Actually, I studied that for 6 months in university, didn't like it. And then after 6 months, I had to wait another 6 months because you can only reapply every year. And so I had to basically stay in the program for a year and then apply to something else. Luckily, I found architecture through a friend. And then here I am. So, and in the meantime, I was like doing businesses here. I was doing digital marketing here, an agency there, some drop shipping. I was doing a bunch of businesses just because I was curious about these things. But eventually, I believe we all go and we all go towards that one thing that is meant for us, and that is just natural, and that aligns with what we're good at, what we enjoy doing. Because if you're good at something, chances are you will enjoy that thing. So take the time, really do whatever it takes. Go for a walk, meditate for a few minutes, have a chat with a good friend that knows you really well. It's also a really good trick is, instead of asking yourself, ask others. Sometimes we have biases in our minds that prevent us from thinking clearly and rationally and with no bias. But if you ask someone, even asking your mom or your dad or your brother or sibling, one of your best friends maybe, or someone who really listens to you, and just ask them like, what do you think I'm good at? Like, what is something that you think I'm good at, or I should be doing, or that, stands out when you talk to me or when we interact, or something you noticed? You'd be surprised about the things people think about you. And so that's an advice. So take the time to do that. And then once you found that thing, you will realize that at the end of the day, all there is to it is just, we're all learning. Obviously, we have that one fundamental skill, but then once you have that skill, it's just a piece of the puzzle. You want to have a growth mindset where you hone in on that thing, that core skill, let's call it like that. And then from there, you will realize that there's an abundance of things you don't know about that thing. And so that's the nice thing, is that there's an infinite amount of things you can learn and practice, and you will naturally go into tangents. It will connect you to other things, other subdisciplines. For example, if you are an illustrator, you can get dragged into concept art in video games, and then you can go into animation, and in animation, maybe depending on where you are, you can go into Japanese animation, Western animation, and then maybe that connects you to fine arts, and then it connects you to art history, and then geography. And so you can really get into these, sub-disciplines and really just learn from there. And then that will become your muse. That will become your inspiration. That will become your fuel and your creative juices, if you can call it like that, that will help you with whatever you want to create. And the beautiful thing is we are all different. That's my other thing, is that because we are all different, we all operate differently. The way I'm inspired is very different from the way you might be inspired. I get inspired by movies, for example. I get inspired by music, which is true. But for some others, you might not even want to, you might get bored with movies, and you might fall asleep in movies, or TV shows don't interest you. Maybe you're more into books. Maybe you're more into reading the news and getting information from there. Maybe you just love talking to people, and you're just like a more in-person person. So there's different ways we consume, and we get inspired. Sometimes the simplest things can inspire you. But eventually you want to get in a space where you have these aha moments, where you start making connections from different sources. And that takes a lot of self-awareness and, a lot of observation and reflection sometimes, to be able to be like, whoa, I have an idea, and those are the moments you really want to keep. And when that happens and you have the aha moment, you want to quickly execute. If it's, you take a piece of paper, take a pen, or have your phone, go on the notes app and just write that down. You don't want to lose those ideas, and you want to have a habit of just keeping track of your thoughts and your ideas, and eventually turning those into projects. The next thing I want to say is, you might regardless of everything I've said, you might be like, okay, well, I know what I want to do. I'm pretty confident that I'm good at these things and I'm a creative person, but I still have those, those doubts. Like maybe the way I speak, maybe my voice is weird, maybe I look weird and I'm not confident in that sense, or I fear that people will judge me, or I feel like, my family will judge me, my coworkers will make fun of me, all these things we think about that I've had to overcome as well. It takes time. It's not easy. It takes a certain amount of courage to do those things, to own up for yourself and be like, I'm doing this for myself because I enjoy doing it and I don't care what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it. It takes some time. And it comes with the realization that, we are all living in our own worlds. There's a funny quote I heard from Naval, who is someone I really look up to. And he says, we are all playing a single player game in this multiplayer environment. And there's a lot of truth to that, because you don't really know how I feel to the deepest core, and I don't really know how you feel or how you think. We're all very drastically different and unique, and we're all part of this world and sharing our thoughts together and trying to cooperate and work together in society. So, but that comes with a lot of, freedom of mind. When you realize that, you become liberated, because you realize that we all have the same issues, the same anxiety, or the same doubts. Deep down, we all want to be happy and fulfilled and do the things we like. And so we're all focused on ourselves. We all, it's sad to say, but we're all very self-centered and very, we're always in our minds thinking about like, oh, I'm feeling this, I want this, I need to go and do this. We have our own routine, our own way of doing things. So once you realize that, it will free you. You will be like, you know what? I have freedom. I can do whatever the heck I want to do. So that's my advice. And another tip to overcome that is to say that because of that, we're all unique. We all have, different views on things. Even the way you speak, the way you formulate words and sentences and accents, and the mannerisms and my cultural background, where I grew up, who I talk to, what type of media I consume, all of these things shape the way I do things. And that makes me unique. The same way like for you have something unique, and you might think it's not worth it, but for someone else, they will resonate with, especially if they have a similar background as you, they've went through similar experiences, or, you want to think of like, think of yourself when you were like a few years younger, and talk or share things as if you were sharing those things with your younger self. That is a good advice, I think, in general. Like, let's say you're a musician and you create music. Think about your art as if you were creating music to your younger self when they were young. That will kind of change the way you approach your creative work. And then finally, you want to find your tribe. Like I mentioned earlier, we're not used to dealing in big groups, that creates a lot of internal fights. Like whenever like company becomes too big and there's a lot of bureaucracy and paperwork, and then people start fighting for raises and better positions and status, and you don't want to play the status game. It's not fun. If someone loses, if someone wins, someone naturally has to lose, just because of how it can become a pyramid scheme in some sense. I don't want to go into that, but you don't want to play the status game. So it's more natural to operate in tribes, in small groups, in small communities. The word decentralized is something that comes up often. It's a buzzword, but it basically means that instead of having just one core group that has all the power and redistributes it to the mass, it's like a top-down approach. I think it's more natural, and we're going more towards a world where it's more from the bottom up. And so decentralizing these groups makes it more natural for just people like me and you to just find our small niches and our small communities, work together, share thoughts, collaborate, work on projects, and then we're exchanging the same way we did back in the past, and we were like trading an object for an object, or like something of value with another thing of value. I think we're coming back more towards that. And so you want to find that, because that group will motivate you. It will give you inspiration. It will feel less lonely to go through that path and to be able to talk about the things that, are on your mind or you're looking forward to. So that's on creativity in general. In terms of how you want to operate now, and I think this is where we go more into logistics and the actual, practical advice. Again, if you're feeling stuck and you don't know where to go or where to start, and you're creative and you just want to create, there's that component of understanding and realization that will just give you the confidence, because you need that confidence to do something like this. Like any creative endeavor is a risky endeavor. It's worthwhile, it's fulfilling, but it's scary. And so you really want to stick to it. It's not about having the best idea and throwing it out there and having it blow up and you're famous, or you succeed and whatever. That never happens. There's no such thing as one-hit wonders, except if you're like super rich to begin with and I don't know, you have like crazy connections. But for most of us, we're all starting from scratch. We have to figure things out and we have to learn, and we have advantages. You might have good connections, you might have great leverage, like social leverage, or you went to a good school, or you're incredibly smart. But if you're trying something new, you want to treat it like a project. And what do I mean by that is, if ever you've worked on a team project, if you worked for a company, for example, how does a project work? You're probably assigned by your manager, your boss. Maybe you're working with other people, so you each have a role, and then you have deadlines. You work towards it during the week. Every day you have different to-do lists and different tasks. If you're in a startup, those tasks might really differ day to day. If you're in a big organization, it might be more siloed, so it's like more specific and you're specialized more than if you're in a smaller company. You're touching more ground. And there's a lot of learnings from that being an employee. And that transitions to my concept, or the way I see it is that you have the employee mindset and then you have the founder mindset. The employee mindset is you go to your job, your group, your organization. And even if you're a student, I would also argue that's pretty similar. And you have a schedule. It's fixed. It's given on you. It's, this is what you have to do. Here are your hours. You clock in, you clock out. You get something in return. It could be, if you're in education, if you're in academia, it's education. If you're in a job, it's money. And you just keep going and you keep going to that. And there's security in maybe being in that job, because that like if you have a contract and for a fixed amount of time, you're expected to have that income. If you if you want to start your own project, or you want to create something that comes out from you and is not assigned to you, then you have to start treating it as if you're running your own company. You have to start developing a founder mindset. And it takes some time to realize that you're either assigned the project or you assign your own project. In other words, you're either working on other people's projects or you're working on your own. Once you make that realization, you will see that you don't need permission. You can just start and do it on your own. Obviously, financially, you need to sustain yourself. So My advice is find a job that you enjoy doing, if you can, or something that can sustain you for some time, and then do side projects. Like, I am an avid or a big fan of side hustles. I don't like hustle because I'm not a fan of the hustle culture. I think it's just makes people depressed and overwhelmed and burnt out because of this idea that you have to work hard constantly. I like the idea of side projects because side projects can fail. And then if they fail, you drop it, you do something else. There's no pressure, there's no stress, just learn. And you learn a lot from that. You know, every side project I've done for the past, like, I don't know, 6-7 years have taught me so much about myself and the things I'm good at. They've strengthened my core skills and taught me what I enjoy doing. So you want to develop this founder mindset where treat yourself as if you were a CEO, or treat yourself as if you were an artist or an entrepreneur, or whatever word you want to use. But I like the word artist or creative. And then just block out time in your schedule. If you have a busy schedule, let's say it's 9 to 5, it could be early morning, it could be late night, weekends, and then really treat it as if you were an employee. Like, go on your laptop, open a Google Docs, open a Dropbox folder, have subfolders, have a tracking table, a spreadsheet, whatever is more comfortable for you. I like to use tools like Miro boards just because I'm very visual. I like really simple tools, Google Docs, PowerPoints, InDesign, whatever you want to use. Just, you know, treat it as if it was a project. Write things out. Even this thing costs, I mean, this is Moleskine, so it's a bit more expensive. It's maybe like $15 or something, but you can buy these like sketchbooks or notebooks for a few dollars, and they last you like several months, like solid. And they are so good because it forces you to just write out your thoughts on paper and sketch things out. And, you know, and you can travel with them, you can bring them everywhere, it becomes your companion. But you want to treat those ideas as projects or as potential projects. Some ideas might fail, some might succeed. If you have a podcast, for example, in mind that you want to make, really take the time to like, okay, let's write things out, and like, what do I need to do? Start, like, what do I want to talk about? Am I solo in this? Am I with someone else? What's the setup? Where are we filming? Like, and then as the more you start to write these things, the more real it starts to become. And the project starts from there. It starts from a concept, from an idea, and it's messy in that process. You know, it goes up and down. You might go backwards. You might realize, okay, we have to restart, reiterate, and then go back. And then, you know, there's a lot of back and forth, but that's the beauty of projects. And you will learn so much by the more projects you do and the more you try and fail and succeed. And so side hobbies, side job, side projects are a good way to do those things. And then, you know, calendars help. Putting things like blocking your time specifically and saying like, okay, I'm going to do this at this time, this at this time, and having a to-do list every day for the week as well, for the year. Maybe not the year. I think that's a bit too much, but at least weekly and for the day. I think those are good habits to have if you want to treat this as a project. And then the next thing is flow state. So let's say you have everything set up. You have an idea for a project. Let's say it's a new project. And then you write things out. You have a journal that with ideas and key bullet points. Maybe you have, you know, some notes on your computer, your calendar set up. You have some to-do lists. The next step is to just do it. So you don't want to fall in the trap of over planning. And I see this all the time. I've fallen victim personally to that. Is I would, especially my personality type is very planning oriented. I just like to track everything. And I think most people at MIT are like that. We just like planning and having things like clear on paper that works theoretically, but all these things don't matter if you don't press record, or if you don't press publish, or if you don't, release the stuff you're making, and that brings me to flow state. Because in flow state, and the way I would define it is when you're doing something and you're so immersed in the thing you're doing. For example, I've realized, and it took me some time to realize, that when I'm talking to, or when I'm discussing ideas, like the way I'm doing now in front of my camera, but it could be in front of people or in a conversation, and I'm doing a monologue style conversation or speech, I lose myself. I feel like I am not even doing this thing. I'm just talking without thinking of what I'm talking. And that's the key thing, is once you notice yourself not thinking and just doing, in whatever activity you're doing, it could be music. I play the guitar, and I've noticed that sometimes, like especially the electric guitar, I get in the flow state like this. I get lost in the electric guitar, especially if I have my headphones on and I'm like experimenting with it and trying to find new sounds and new feels. I could be spending 2 hours on it, and it felt like 10 minutes. Those are blissful moments that you should keep track of. And that could be for anything. And it's different for every individual. I know some people that it's not even quote unquote creative. They get in a flow state when they're selling, or they get in the flow state when they're teaching, or they get in the flow state when they're doing sports. It could be physical, it could be artistic, it could be writing, it could be filming, acting, having a conversation, playing in it. There's so many different things that you might be doing that you just get lost in. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about finding that one thing, but it could be multiple things. But once you find that thing, just use that as part of the core driver of your project, because you want to be in that state as many times as you want, because that will produce things, that will produce content, that will produce value and writings and ideas on paper that exist. And you want to track those things, you want to record those things out. And then once you have those things, you might want to polish it, you might want to edit it. And then that's another thing, is that sometimes we become our own worst critic, and we realize that, it's not good enough, or, I need to edit it, or I need this, or I need that, or I need to learn this before doing it. But I would argue, just put it out there. Just and that comes back to treating it like a job, treating it like a real project in a real company, which is your company. You're the boss, you're the founder, you're on a tight deadline. Because when you put a deadline and you say, okay, at this specific date, I need to release it, I need to put it out, I need to, give it to my client, like a fictional client, then you will be obliged to put it out, because that's how companies operate. They don't have the luxury of saying like, oh no, we're gonna keep what we produced for ourselves. Sorry, client, it's not good enough. No, the client wants what they paid for. And so you gotta treat your work as if it was a professional endeavor. It's a professional act. You're producing things on a deadline, and at that day, you need to put out the content, or put out the work you've done, or share it, or, you want to create and just give. Don't ask for anything in return. Don't tell yourself that, it's not good enough, or they don't deserve it, or maybe the next one will be better. No, just put it out there. And that's really it. That's all the points I wanted to talk about, is that, on one end, you want to find the thing you're good at, you're interested in, you're curious about, that kind of makes you stand out from the rest. Once you find that thing and you want to turn it into your own, your own job, your own project, or a side thing that you're interested in, and see where it goes, then you need to be serious about it and not just talk about it. You know, talking about the thing is not doing the thing. Talking to your friends about it is not doing the thing. The only way to do the thing is to do the thing. So there's no shortcut to it. You just have to do it and then push it out and give it and send it. It might flop, it might not, but it doesn't matter, because you will learn so much from doing it, and you never know until you try. You know, like, for example, like these past few days have been so great, by the way. Like, all the amazing comments I've seen on my YouTube videos are so good. I've learned a lot from you guys who I'm talking to, and you guys have been so supportive. So thank you so much for that. But I would have not been able to see all these messages and learn so much about you and having this really interesting relationship on the internet if I had not decided to just hit record and take all these months of ideas that I had in my mind and just decide to take my computer out and my phone and just record myself and put it out on YouTube. So that's something I would recommend anyone to do. It is a great feeling to just put out the work that you believe in and that makes you happy, that you enjoy doing. And yeah, that's my message for today. There is so much opportunity out there. The world is changing really fast. You especially here at MIT, like, to be in this environment where you see the cutting edge of technology like firsthand in front of you, and you're talking to people who are experts in their fields, and you see the projects going out, and innovation is literally stemming from here. And to see that happen firsthand can be scary. It's a lot. It's I feel like a kid in a candy store, because everywhere I look is like so amazing and so impressive. And the world is going really fast. AI, technology, digital economy, creator economy, like all that stuff is happening right now. But it's never been an easier time for people like you and me, especially if you're in your early 20s or even younger or older, like anyone. If you're someone who's on the internet, you are blessed. You literally have all the opportunities given to you in front of you. You just have to not be afraid to do it and to try and to experiment and to learn. So that's it for today. That's my message. And yeah, I'll catch you in another video. Hope you have a good one, and take care, and peace.